Dontae'S Boxing Nation, what's going on, guys? Well, the last couple of days I've been glued to the TV watching the Olympics. Of course, mainly boxing, a little bit of track and field. And if you look at my Instagram, you can definitely tell. So basically what I wanted to do is give you guys an overall review of what's transpired so far when it comes to wins, defeats, upsets, etc., etc., etc. So the good news for USA, or Team USA, is we have already gotten more wins this year in the Olympics than the total 2012 Olympics when it comes to the boxing team. And these Olympics aren't even over yet. Now, on top of that, there are less fighters on the team this year. There are only 6 men on this team. Now, when it comes to coming out the blocks, you had Nico Hernandez, the light flyweight, and you had Carlos Balderas. Now, they came out looking real good, winning their first 2 or 3 fights. Nico Hernandez, he pulled off a huge upset over the number 2 seed, Vasily Iganov from Russia. And then he followed that up with a quarterfinal win over Ecuador, and that guaranteed Nico Hernandez a bronze medal. Now, Gary Russell, he already has 2 wins. Shakur Stephenson, he just fought for the first time this Sunday, and he looked real good going up against Brazil. Antonio Vargas, he won his first fight, looked pretty good in this first fight. Now, this is where the bad news comes in. The bad news is Nico Hernandez, Carlos Balderas, and Antonio Vargas, and Charles Conwell, they're all out of the competition. Charles Conwell, he lost his very first fight. Nico Hernandez, he lost to Uzbekistan, and Carlos Balderas, he lost to Cubans Lazaro Alvarez, who coincidentally had already medaled in 2012, and he had also beat Jojo Diaz. So that was a tough draw for Carlos Balderas. Now, what I thought was pretty interesting with Nico Hernandez's loss to the Uzbekistan fighter is it's crazy that he beat the number 2 seed from Russia, but when he fought the fighter from Uzbekistan, Vasily Iganov, Nico Hernandez looked like a fish out of water. So I thought that was pretty odd. I mean, you can beat the number 2 Russian fighter, who's also an Eastern European fighter, but you have almost no success against the fighter from Uzbekistan. Now, I do know styles make fights, no doubt about that, but it's still interesting to me. So then you have Antonio Vargas, who loses to another Uzbekistan fighter by the name of Zorov. That fight wasn't even competitive. So far, you had 2 American fighters lose to Uzbekistan fighters, and 1 American fighter lost to Cuba. So now that we know the biggest threats in this tournament is most likely Uzbekistan and Cuba, the bad news is Shakur Stephenson and Gary Russell, they haven't faced anyone from those countries yet in this tournament. Now, I know Gary Russell, he looked very sloppy in his first win against Haiti's Hitchens. Now, I don't know, maybe you can attribute that to him knowing Hitchens so much, because Hitchens is actually, he's from Brooklyn, or he lives in Brooklyn, but he has dual citizenship. So Gary Russell, he actually had to fight Hitchens in the trials and beat him, and Hitchens, he ended up just representing Haiti for the Olympics. So I don't know if maybe it's because Gary Russell was so familiar with Hitchens already, but it was a sloppy performance. But in Gary Russell's second fight, I have to give him credit, because he looked like he put everything together when he fought against Thailand's Masuk. Now, in that fight, Gary Russell's southpaw jab, he was popping it out real quick. He was using it very well to blind his opponent and land the left hand. He was showing tremendous speed on the inside and on the outside. What makes Gary Russell Jr. somewhat of a threat in the division is the fact that not only is he southpaw, but he's a southpaw with tremendous hand speed, like his older brother, Mr. Gary Russell, the featherweight champion of the world right now. Now, don't get it twisted. He's not as good as the former featherweight champion, Gary Russell Jr., but Gary Antoine Russell, he's looking pretty good. Once again, he looked much better in his second fight against Thailand. But with that all being said, Gary Russell Jr. is in a hell of a bracket, man. I mean, he is in a hell of a bracket. Not only does he have another Uzbekistan fighter in his division, but he also has two, not one, but two Cuban fighters in that division. And matter of fact, I think this is the first time it's been done. You know, I could be wrong, but inside of Gary Russell's division, you have two Cuban fighters that will be going up against each other. I believe it's tomorrow, because one of the Cuban fighters, he left the Cuban team and defected to Azerbaijan. His name is Lorenzo Sotomayor, and he'll be going up against the Cubans team, Yasniel Toledo Lopez, who I believe won a bronze medal in 2012. Now, Toledo Lopez, his style reminds me a lot of Joel Casamayor, a lot of foot movement, basically always trying to set up the left hand. I mean, I know a lot of Cuban fighters are southpaws, but his style is really reminiscent of Joel Casamayor. So not only does Gary Russell have to worry about the winner of those two Cuban fighters, but he also has to worry about the Uzbekistan fighter as well, which Gary Russell, he'll be facing tomorrow. He's fighting against the Uzbekistan fighter tomorrow, so we'll see how that plays out. That's not going to be an easy fight for Gary Antoine Russell. Now I want to talk about the man who has the best chance of getting a gold medal. And it ain't going to be easy for him either, but I believe the road is a little bit easier for Shakur Stephenson. Now when it comes to Shakur Stephenson, he has an Uzbek fighter, a Russian fighter, and a Cuban fighter in his bracket. Now when it comes to the Russian fighter, Vladimir Nikitin, he actually was in a fight with a Thailand fighter that, in my opinion, completely dominated him, and they robbed the Thailand fighter. The Thailand fighter was actually really good. I started to look at him as one of the best threats going up against a Shakur Stephenson. But then they end up robbing the Thailand fighter and giving it to the much slower, flat-footed Russian fighter. And as far as I'm concerned, it was unfortunate for the Thailand fighter, but that may have made the road a little bit more easier for Shakur Stephenson, because I believe the way the bracket is set up, if Vladimir Nikitin continues to win, Shakur Stephenson, he will have to face the Russian first, and I believe the Cuban fighter, matter of fact, the Cuban fighter, Robeisy Martinez, which is the 2012 gold medalist, I think he's going to have to face the Uzbekistan fighter. So that means Shakur Stephenson will get the winner of Cuba versus Uzbekistan, assuming he gets past the Russian fighter. Shakur Stephenson's next fight is against Mongolia on Tuesday. And once again, I believe if he gets past Mongolia, he'll fight against Vladimir Nikitin next. So it's a tough road, but if anyone could do it, Shakur Stephenson can. What I like about Shakur Stephenson is he has these focused eyes when he's fighting. It really reminds me of when Andre Ward was fighting in the Olympics, and we know Andre Ward was the last man to get a gold medal when it comes to Team USA. Coincidentally, Shakur Stephenson's favorite fighter is Andre Ward. Something else that Shakur has going for himself is he is 23-0 in international fights. So that means he's already beat the Eastern European fighters, he's already beat the Cuban fighters, but he's never done it on the biggest stage, which is the Olympics. And you know, that's a trip when I think about it, because when it comes to a lot of these American fighters, they've actually won international tournaments. and beat Eastern European fighters and Cuban fighters. But it's something about the Olympics that just changes everything. It just raises the bar. And for some reason, all of a sudden, you see some of these fighters looking like they're fish out of water. Like they don't know what to do. They don't know what to expect when they get in the ring with some of these Cubans or Eastern European fighters. But I truly believe Shakur Stephenson, he has the best chance. We already knew going into these Olympics that he had the best chance. Won't be easy, but I can see him doing it. I look forward to seeing how he deals with the Mongolian fighter tomorrow. The Mongolian fighter is pretty tough as well. He's a real short, aggressive fighter, so that should be an interesting fight tomorrow. Now, other fighters that stood out and actually even got Floyd Mayweather's attention, because Floyd Mayweather's out there in Brazil scouting right now. Floyd Mayweather took a liking to Joshua Buatsi of Great Britain, a UK fighter who has been knocking out everyone in the contest. He's a light heavyweight. He's from the UK, but originally from Ghana, I believe. And the guy has a style that is very similar to Anthony Joshua. He reminds me a lot of Anthony Joshua. That's exactly how he fights. He's knocked out 2 of his 3 opponents so far. One of the guys he knocked out was one of the Uzbekistan fighters. It was one of the most vicious knockouts, if not the most vicious knockout of the game so far. Matter of fact, you guys could check out the highlights of that knockout on my Instagram, and a lot more highlights as well. So when it comes to Joshua Buatsi, it looks like right now he's almost guaranteed to get a gold medal. And once again, like I said, Floyd Mayweather is already trying to sign him to Mayweather Promotions. Don't be surprised if you see the first gold medalist fighting on PBC next year. So that's pretty much it. I'm going to go ahead and wrap it up. So yes, there are only 2 men remaining when it comes to the men's Olympic team. Of course, I didn't talk too much about Clarissa Shields because she's almost guaranteed to get a gold medal. I don't see anyone really posing a threat for Shields. But when it comes to the men, it's a real uphill battle. Hopefully, Gary Russell and Shakur Stephenson can pull it off. But once again, it will not be easy. That's all I got for now, guys. I'm on to the next one.
This is Bobby, and you're watching Dontae'S Boxing Nation.